thanks for joining me here on the Need2Know comedy show. And Isa, how long have you been in the UK? You're from Spain, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think actually 5 years to the dot, because I recently got my settled status. So that's like exactly 5 years.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. What's that? You have to be 5 years in another European country till you get a.
Yeah, no, it's just here in the UK. They okay, so like if you're in the
Brexit, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you can just like go to any country in the EU and live there normally and stuff. But now in the UK, they might kick you out unless you have the permanent residence, and you have to have lived here for 5 years to get it. But they don't call it permanent residence anymore. They call it settled status, which is like a bit worrisome. Like, what does that mean? Can they change the definition?
You can't move around the UK. You have to settle.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. But yeah. And let's see. Let's find out.
Yeah. Well, you've got it now anyway. So
yeah.
So and what part of Spain are you from?
I'm from the south. I'm from a town by the sea called Roquetas de Mar.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
Orratecos.
Roquetas. Yeah, it's difficult, but it's called Roquetas de Mar, which means Roquetas by the sea, and Roquetas doesn't mean anything. So
it doesn't mean rocket. No,
rocket. No, I wish. Yeah, it's like a little fisherman's town in the south of Spain. Super lovely, very sunny, like lots of beaches. It's great. Beaches.
Beaches, yeah, not bitches. Yeah. Okay. But sounds lovely, yeah. And so when you were growing up in this small town in Spain, was it your ambition to be a stand-up comedian in English?
No, I moved here to study at university, and that's where I discovered comedy and stand-up comedy. Like it was. So I came to university. The first week of university, I met this girl that was super into comedy, and I wanted to go with this girl so bad. So she went for an audition for a comedy show, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'll go with you. We can audition together." We both got through and did the show, and she's not doing stand-up now, but it completely hooked me. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It changed my life forever. And yeah.
So it was.
And since then, yeah.
It was love that brought you towards comedy. Well, maybe lust, I don't know.
Yeah. It was lust that brought me to comedy.
Yeah. And did you start a relationship with that girl, or did that?
No, she like shortly after she moved to San Francisco, and she married a guy there. Oh, yeah. But we're still friends. Oh. I don't think she even knows that I was like into her. But yeah.
Well, if she watches this, she knows.
Yeah.
So that was what kind of a competition? A stand-up comedy competition?
It was like an audition for just like a normal show. Just like a university show. Yeah, I feel like it's always people that start doing stand-up at university, they have an advantage because university audiences are always like easy to perform to. They usually don't heckle and stuff. So yeah, I feel like it was like a very safe environment to start doing stand-up. And then when I got to the real world, I realized that I was not as great as I was. I was like, well, I have to work harder on this, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's all acts start out with an audience that kind of gets what they're doing and the
Mm,
references and all that, and then they move out
yeah.
to, and you have older people who just don't quite get what you're talking about, perhaps
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah, and so then, what were you doing in Cambridge? What were you studying?
I was like, I went there to do a PhD in physics,
Yeah,
and yeah, I dropped out pretty quickly. It was awful. Yeah, don't ever do. Whoever is listening to this, don't ever do a PhD in physics in Cambridge. It's hell. I don't know why I even did that to myself. But yeah, I think like I was like very lucky that I found comedy, which was something that I was like really into. So like it was not like my it was not like a massive identity crisis when I dropped out. I was like, well, there's this other thing that I really like that I can do. So that was like really good. But yeah, no,
yeah.
don't ever don't
Don't
be
ever
ashamed.
do a PhD in physics. That's your advice. Well, actually, my daughter liked physics kind of in.
Oh no.
Well, no, hang on. She liked it in school. She liked
Mm,
it, but she found it really difficult. And like she's doing art now. She's studying
yeah.
in university. She's doing art, and But I don't know what it was attracted her to physics. Uh, Maybe it was just the teacher. Maybe she just liked the teacher. But
Maybe it's like yeah, that's like that's a problem with like because I also got into physics because I had really good teachers and like no one warned me that like the world of academia that everyone in academia is like awful. It's like high school teachers are like super cool, they do like cool experiments and stuff, then you go to academia and they're like monsters, like no comparison, they're like yeah.
is there a particular type of person that studies physics? Because is it a nerdy type of subject?
Actually, like I think like people that study it, they're quite cool. Like just it's just that the profile is like people that usually like hardworking and are curious and like to ask questions. But I think that the problem is that after being in academia, working for universities and applying for funding and all of that, that breaks you and you become like beta, a meme. So I think like what happened is that all these people that are super into like research and like investigating and things get to academia and then they spend 90% of their time applying for funding or like trying to get a grant or like having to teach to students and they start to resent the PhD students that are working in their lab that are actually doing the lab work because that's what they want to do. So, but they can't. They're trapped. So I
Yeah,
think like, yeah, that's the issue.
yeah. Like I actually know a girl who studied physics and went through and became like a scientist and all this, but she gave all that up
Yeah.
to breed cattle on a farm. So,
Yeah.
and that's what she does now. And she actually told me that this is a weird thing. I don't know if you know, because
Yeah.
when you're breeding cattle, they freeze the sperm. They have artificial insemination, and you can get sperm from the 60s. You can at different decades that has been frozen for like 40, 50, 60 even decades, and
That's crazy.
yeah, and it means that like she would say, oh, that cow is from the 60s because it's really small because they were really
Yeah.
small in the 60s. Anyway, that's off the point really. But so you started off then doing comedy in university and then spread out. Like, where did you start doing it outside of university?
Well, like I moved to London when as soon as I dropped out, and I decided that I was gonna have a career in comedy. And I think that one thing that was actually quite helpful was to do one of those stand-up classes, like where you have like 8 weeks, and I didn't like learn a lot, but it was just like nice to be around people every week, around the same people every week that was starting around the same time and going through the same things. And that really helped you having that support system. And from there, it's just like good to be able to talk to people that are maybe having a bad gig sometimes, so you can talk to them about not having a nice gig, and they relate, and you don't feel like you're a bad comedian. So yeah, I think that really helped. Like and from there, just gigging loads, gigging. Well, up to until recently when I
Obviously,
didn't stop.
March. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's terrible, isn't it? I mean, it's the best way to learn is to just get stage time, right? Just
Yeah.
yeah.
How did you get into comedy?
How did I? A friend. It was very not exactly the same, but it was definitely a friend of mine who got me into it. He was really into it and into watching comedy films and stuff. And I didn't start on stand-up. I started doing sketches, and then with this other guy. Then when we broke away, I had to do stand-up. I found that very difficult. I found it very difficult to not be a character and to be me. And yeah, have you done sketches and improv as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like it's harder to be yourself. Like when I was doing a sketch, I have done sketches with a lot of people during the time that I've been doing comedy. If something goes bad on stage, you can just make each other laugh, and you can just like still have a good time. But if you're alone on stage and they don't like you, it's all on you, and there's like no one you can turn to and like laugh at the situation.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
then
like
when you do really well, it's all
yeah,
yours. It's like
yeah.
this is me.
Then when you do well, it's like oh me, yeah. Uh, and yeah, with improv is the same. Like with improv, you don't even care that there is an audience. You're just it's more self-indulgent. It's like you can do an entire improv set without a single laugh, and you can come out of it and feel like you did good improv. Yeah.
Yeah, because you feel like you stayed true to the character or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel like, oh, it all came back together at the end. We did such a good job, and maybe the audience hated it the whole time.
And the great thing about improv is you can't rehearse. So there's no point in even thinking about that. You go, oh, I can't rehearse. So I just got to turn up and do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good. I see that you've done 3 of your own shows in Edinburgh.
Yeah, so I have gone to Edinburgh a few times. Okay, so when I went to Edinburgh the first year, I didn't know that going to Edinburgh was a big deal. So I was just like, I'm just going to do a show. I'm just going to have a good time. And then reality hit, and everyone was like, oh my God, you're doing your first hour. And I was like, yeah, so? And everyone was talking to me about that being a big deal and how you have to be like super ready to do that. So I went there and I didn't have a bad time, but like it was not a smart decision. I would not recommend it at all. The second year that I went, I did a character comedy show as in drag. That was like, yeah, it was like his name, the character name is Muchachico, and he's like a Spanish artist, and he paints on stage and stuff. And that was very fun to do. Like a lot of people really enjoy it, like especially people that were super into art and stuff. And then the third year, I did a show about space, and it was sort of like about how I really enjoy physics, and then I stopped enjoying physics. But they were like lots of very silly jokes about space, and I was like in a spacesuit, and that show did very, very well, got really good reviews. So I feel like every year it's better. So in a way, I'm glad that I just jump into it and I started doing it. But if I could do it all over again, I will take a complete different approach. Like completely, that was stupid. But
Oh, but at least you got your first year done without, you know, who would expect your first year anyway to be amazing?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. So it was good. I feel like, yeah, I feel like every year that I have gone there, I have taken something out of it. And that's all. That's the reason why you go. It's because you think it's gonna help your career. And yeah, I think it did. I feel like if I have put more pressure on me, maybe I would not have enjoyed as much and not gotten as much as I did out of it. So
yeah, you enjoyed it, yeah. And when you were doing a Drag King, did you do musical? Was there a musical part to that show?
Yeah, so I cannot sing at all, and I'm musically challenged. I cannot do anything musical, but I can paint very quickly. So like my cabaret was centered around painting on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I'm trying to to be more musically minded and composing some comedy songs and stuff now. And I got myself an autotune because I don't want anyone to hear my real voice ever. So like maybe at some point I'll put something musical out, but no, for a long time.
Oh, go on.
You're a musician, yeah.
Sorry?
You're a musician. You do.
I do. Yeah, I do play guitar. I play guitar on stage. Yeah. I wouldn't call myself a musician. I think people who are actually musicians will look at me and go, "No, you're not a musician." but I can play a few chords. Yeah, and I do like musical comedy. I like doing musical comedy. So if I can't play something, I get a backing track or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I love it. Have you ever? So do you find it's funnier to do comedy in English as opposed to Spanish?
I find it completely different. So like the rhythm is like very, very different. When people do stand up in Spanish, it feels more like they're telling a story, a funny story. Like there's like more of a narrative, and it's very weird because I have seen stand-up sets in which like someone is telling their funny story and people is laughing because it's funny, and the comedian is shushing them because it's distracting the flow. So they're like, shh, and like they keep talking, and I was like, what are you doing? You have to do this for the laughs. And the times I have done a stand-up in Spanish, which has been very few times, I take the approach that I do in English, in which like I talk, I pause for laughs after a joke, and people are so confused. They're like, what is happening? Why is she giving us space to laugh? Like, what is this? They're very confused by the difference of flow. Different approaches.
Why do you think is that the way the language is constructed, or is it just a cultural thing?
I think like a bit of both. I think like because there is a stand-up culture in Spanish. I think it's getting more popular now because like people get to Netflix and they see like the Netflix specials. Now people is doing it more. But I think that up until recently, people didn't know what stand-up was. So they didn't really know the rules of stand-up. There's a show in Spanish television called the Comedy Club, and it's people doing funny monologues, but it's not really stand-up. And they don't even have comedians. They invite, for example, actors or like a random famous person, and it's bizarre. Yeah. but
But
it works.
is there something about do you feel there's something about the English language which makes it suitable to doing stand-up comedy more so than any other language?
I think when you write jokes in English compared to Spanish, it's easier to place the funny bit at the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to start like with like setup punchline type, to do the setup punchline like structure. Well, in Spanish, if you try to do that, sometimes the construction of the sentence like very awkward, and people are like confused by like why is that person speaking weird.
Yeah. So it's easier to reveal at the end.
Yeah, it's easier to reveal. I think that's a good way to put it, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard that same in German. I heard it's very hard to do stand-up in the German language for the same reason, I believe. Yeah. So how's this year is so odd. I don't know what comedians. I mean, I feel just like I don't even know when I'm going to work again. I did my first gig last Wednesday.
Oh, how did it go?
It was really good. Like it was set up outside, and people arrived and they had teepees. Each group had a teepee to, the tents, and they got their drinks served there, and then they came over. But it only worked because the weather happened to be good. But it was amazing, and I realized that I still love it. For a while I was thinking, oh, I don't miss it that much. I don't miss traveling all over the country. But after a good gig, you go, oh yeah, I do love it.
I did my first gig in 5 months on Saturday, and I was like nervous. I was like, my heart was pounding. I was like, oh my God, why am I doing this? It was like all over again, like the all the feelings. But then like I felt so good doing it. I was like, oh yeah, this is the stuff.
Yeah.
This is why I do it.
Yeah.
But I was I was like starting again. I was like so nervous before going on stage. Yeah.
I had to listen back to a recording of stand-up to go, oh yeah, that's it. But I still wasn't sure. As I was about to do something where it was exactly going, I was hoping my memory would just kick in,
Yeah.
And it did. And I did some new stuff as well, by the way. I didn't just spend 5 minutes not writing. Anyway.
Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna do all my new stuff on Saturday, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna sandwich it between like old material because I can't just do new material. I'll die. I'm gonna die if I do that. But yeah, it was not that bad. It was good.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's very hard to know whether you should do stuff on coronavirus because I'm thinking everybody's going to be talking about coronavirus. Should I just and you don't want to just ignore it because that seems a bit weird. So.
Yeah, I did talk about it. I didn't realize how much of my new material is about coronavirus. I thought that I was like making a conscious effort not to write about it because of what you say, like surely everyone's writing about it. But then was like going through my notebook and it was all like lockdown stuff, coronavirus stuff, like.
Yeah. Nah, you gotta. Yeah, you can't ignore. Well, I mean, it's your life, so that's obviously what you're going to write about. Had you planned to go to Edinburgh this year? I presume you had, yeah.
Yeah, I was. But yeah, like that didn't happen, and hopefully, I don't even know whether I want to go next year.
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, I was like, it was very nice not to have the cloud of Edinburgh hanging over my head for months.
Had you written any of the show?
Sorry?
Had you written any of the show before?
Yeah, so I wrote. I did my show at the Ball Festival just before lockdown. So I had like a first, second draft of my show, and yeah, like I could do it next year. I could just like not do it at all. I found that yeah, it was like nice not to worry about Edinburgh, but also I have taken this time to upskill myself, and I'm like thinking about different ways that I can like share my material that is not through live performances. So I feel like that's the good thing about this lockdown period is that it gives you time to think outside of the stand-up sort of like a structure and think about other things that you can do, obviously, because no one could do stand-up. Yeah.
Absolutely. I found it really good. Like, I mean, I've been writing a lot more and
Yeah.
shooting sketches and, but not stand. I haven't been writing stand up because I go, well, I'm not going to perform it. So,
Hmm.
you know, um, so listen, thanks for coming on the show. And as
Yeah.
you know, you were recommended by Mary O'Connell. So I'm going to ask you now, is
Yeah.
if there's an act that you like and that we haven't heard of and that you recommend to us.
In terms of like the comedy circuit.
Yes. Well, whatever. Comedy
Oh,
circuit, online, anything at all.
oh, there are like so many people that like. I like. I'm getting into Spanish comedy lately. Uh, so there's this show on Netflix called Paquita Salas, and like the main character is like super funny. He dresses as a woman, and he's just like my mother. He's like he plays a Spanish mother really well, and I think that's why I find it so funny. And in terms of like different acts that I really like in the comedy circuit in London, I think that Heidi Regan is hilarious. She's so funny. Everything that she does is incredible. Um,
Heidi
yeah,
Regan.
yeah, she's Australian. She has a podcast about films, and yeah, her comedy is really up my alley. I cannot like stop listening to her. I think that also there's a comedian called Louise Atkinson,
Yeah.
and like her writing is insane. Like I like it gives me major like jealousy, like writing jealousy. It's a pleasure to see her like perform every time. Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's what I
brilliant.
like.
Well, they
Yeah,
sound great, and hopefully we can get them on the show as well. So
yeah,
it seems like there's a really good, vibrant comedy, you know, community going at the minute. Anyway, it's
hmm.
lots of
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
There's like lots of good stuff. There's like lots of like very fresh comedy and like weird comedy going on. Uh, just just get. I like really silly stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that there's a new silly trend going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I love your act. It's brilliant,
Yeah.
and your stage, your charisma on stage. It's brilliant. So
Thank you.
keep it up, and hopefully I'll see you on the circuit sometime, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a
Oh, thanks
pleasure
for coming
talking to
on.
you.
It's been great chatting to you. Right, see
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.